Politics got astray. Judge dismisses Trump campaign lawsuit in Pennsylvania. President Donald Trump attempts to overturn his election loss are plunging deeper into incoherence. On Saturday night, the Trump campaign requested a second recount in Georgia, a day after top Republican state official certified his defeat following a statewide audit. This one will be done by machine and is even less likely to reverse his fate. Hours earlier, a federal judge rejected the Trump's campaign's latest effort to disfranchise millions of voters, this time in Pennsylvania. All around the country, Trump's lawyers and loyalists are seeing their baseless allegations of systematic voter fraud treated with increasing contempt by disbelieving judges. Even now, with a wave of certification deadlines about to crash down, the president and his opportunist enablers are injecting doubt and anxiety whenever they can. The returns, though, seem to be diminishing. This time around, it was Judge Matthew Braun, a Republican, who in tossing out a Trump-backed lawsuit felt compelled to underscore with a literary flourish the absurdity of the campaign's assertion. This claim, like Frankenstein's monsters, has been haphazardly stitched together from two distinct theories in an attempt to avoid controlling President, Braun wrote. His decision prompted another Republican, Pennsylvania Senator Pat Toomey, who is not running for re-election in 2020, to do the bare minimum in breaking ranks with party leaders and acknowledging Joe Biden as a president-elect. But even as Trump's brazen bid to subvert American democracy keeps gobbling up headlines, it is his appalling handling of the pandemic that seems poised now to etch itself more lastingly into the history books. The United States surpassed 12 million coronaviruses on Saturday, adding nearly 200,000 more to its staggering count. Trump has made no mention of the terrifying milestone. Rather, he spent part of the day golfing. It was just as well. Trump's petulance worsens pandemic pain. When the lame duck president speaks about the pandemic, he only further undermines scattershot efforts to contain it. That Trump skipped out of a side session focused on pandemic preparedness with world leaders at the G20 virtual gathering on Saturday surprised no one. It's unlikely he was missed. All the while, states and cities around this country reported record high numbers of infections as hospitalizations mounted, setting off alarm bells over a collapse of an overwhelmed healthcare system. And that's before millions of Americans begin their ill-advised holiday travels ahead of Thanksgiving this week. More than 250,000 are already dead, millions out of work, and the administration and its Republican allies in the Senate seems determined to deepen the despair, while in the process undermining Biden's efforts to right the ship when he takes control on January 20th of next year. By blocking Biden's team from accessing sensitive government information, complicated operations like the distribution of a vaccine are likely to be delayed or made more cumbersome. Some 9 months after the coronavirus first gripped the country, there is still no unified plan to combat it. And measures taken by Congress to mitigate the pain are lapsing. The expanded federal unemployed benefits extended as part of a $2 trillion package passed earlier this year are due to run out just after Christmas, affected an estimated 12 million Americans. There is, for now, little to suggest that coming renaissance of negotiation on Capitol Hill, where state Republicans have refused to take up a new package passed by House Democrats, and Speaker Nancy Pelosi rejected potential piecemeal deals floated by the GOP in the run-up to the election. The trickle-down effects of inaction in Washington, D.C. are being felt mostly acutely at the state and local level, where even officials who acknowledge the existence of the crisis are hesitant to take bold and implement the kind of drastic measures proven to help curb the spread of the virus. You shut non-essential workplaces or indoor dining, you're basically putting a bullet in them. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy, a Democrat, said on Friday about the absence of fiscal aid, suggesting that someone like a 2-week pause is effectively out of the question without a capital boost from Capitol Hill. Sarah Johnson, the international president of the Association of Flight Attendants, ripped Senate Republicans over their hesitance to act, a contrast with the body's relatively swift passage of the initial $2 trillion package back in March. With more than 12 million cases, over 250,000 Americans dead, more than 60 million unemployed claims filed since March 8. 8 million people have been pushed into poverty, and over 100,000 businesses shuttered. The same exact Senate has recessed without even the notion of hope of relief for Americans destined to die, more likely from homelessness than a raging pandemic, Nelson said. Anyone musing politics makes inaction explainable better. Just resign now and let the patriotic essential workers take their ends. Even with congressional ranks, the number of COVID cases is steadily rising. Just this week, Republicans Senator Chuck Grassley of Ohio and Rick Scott of Florida tested positively. On Saturday night, Georgia Senator Kelly Loeffler, a Republican campaign ahead of a runoff for a seat, announced that she too returned a positive test, bringing the total count to more than 3 dozen lawmakers from both parties. The twin crisis of COVID and Trump's anti-democratic machinations collided over the last 48 hours when 2 leading Michigan GOP lawyers emerged from a meeting at the White House by stating again that they had seen no evidence to suggest Biden did not win their state fair and square. Instead, Senate Majority Leader Mike Shirley and Michigan House Speaker Lee Chatfield apparently used at least part of their time with the president to deliver a letter pleading for more federal and to aid to fight the virus. Months ago, Michigan received funds through the Federal CARES Act, and we used that funding to quickly support frontline workers, improve testing, ensure adequate PPE, provide additional support to out-of-work Michiganders, and deliver assistance to local businesses that are struggling through no fault of their own, the Michigan Republicans said in a joint statement. We once again face a time in our state when additional support would go a long way to help those same residents who need our help. Trump retweeted this statement on Saturday morning, but ignored the request for help and focused on pumping air into his deflating campaign to upend the election. This is true, but much different than reported by the media, Trump said. We will show massive and unprecedented fraud. But with a handful of local and state certification deadlines early next week, it has been plain that, like with so many other promises, Trump's pledge to reveal some kind of massive, coordinated fraud will never materialize. Shortly between news of the Pennsylvania case, embarrassing defeat began to spread. Trump retreated to a more hospitable territory, the Wild West of social media, to engage in a round of coronavirus whataboutism. He pointed to the foil to the toll of the epidemic on other countries and attacked the media for not reporting on the efficacy of emerging therapeutics. The fake news is not talking about the fact that COVID is running wild all over the world, not just in the US, he wrote, before referencing presumably the portion of the morning's international summit he took part in. I was at the virtual G20 meeting early this morning, and the biggest subject was COVID. We will be healing fast, especially with our vaccines. These vaccines, though promising, are still months away from being available to millions of desperate Americans, tens of thousands of whom are projected to die before they arrive. Trump's allies out to undermine Biden. In the meantime, Trump's Treasury Secretary appears to be doing his best to starve the distressed business community of a key lifetime. On Thursday, Steve Mnuchin requested that the Federal Reserve return some $450 billion in so-called unused funding that the central banks insist and will continue to be crucial in preventing further economic woes. Mnuchin himself, in a letter to the Federal Reserve, acknowledged that the lending programs clearly achieved their objective, but he still demanded the return of the nearly $500 billion, a move that brought objections from corporate leaders, hardly a hotbed of anti-Trump resistance, and the Fed, which he said it preferred that the full suite of emergency facilities established during the coronavirus pandemic continued to serve their important role as a backdrop for our still strained and vulnerable economy. The reasoning for the decision, some experts said, appears to be a bid to hamstring the incoming administration. This appears to be a political move by Team Trump to limit what President-elect Joe Biden can do next year to boost the economy. Jared Steinberg, financial services and housing policy analyst for COVID Washington Research Group, wrote in a research note, especially if Congress fails to pass a big stimulus, and with the balance of the next Senate currently up for grabs, with Democrats needing to sweep the January runoffs elections in Georgia to win control, the prospects for a package sizable enough to match the needs of the country are best uncertain. So too is it for Biden and his transition team, which remains locked out of the agencies it is posed to take over after the inauguration, and cut off from information that could help in planning his way out of the current shambles. Emily Murphy, the Trump appointee who heads the General Service Administration, has given no indication of when or if she plans to exercise her power to acknowledge Biden as the apparent winner, which opens up crucial lines of communication and avail the president-elect team to millions of dollars in federal funds. With Murphy stalling, Biden's transition team is now seeking to effectively crowdsource its efforts. On Friday, it sent a fundraising email to supporters as it awaits legal action. The nation faces too many challenges to not have a fully funded and smooth transition to prepare the president-elect and vice president-elect to govern on day one, a transition official told CNN. But no amount of money can buy access to the classified briefings typically granted within days to election winners, Biden and the country appears condemned to wait for Trump to set aside his wounded pride and concede to reality. The wait continues. The surge and death and despair does too.